All right. Hello, everybody. Here I am again, trying to get used to this, talking to you guys. Yeah. Anyway, here I am. Um, Going to do a gig tonight at the dispensary. That's going to be fun. That's with Bill Zappi and Jimmy Trippy. So we're going to have a good time tonight. I'm looking forward to that. Um, just going to jump on for a minute to let you know I'm still around and what do I have to say for this week? I have a lot of things to say, but I should probably keep my mouth shut on most of it um, for my good. But that's all I'm going to say about that. Let's see. I've been, I said the last time I was on here, I was going to talk today about when I came to town, and uh, and I'll hit a little bit on that when I came to Las Vegas from Mississippi, and I will say that without Pete Leone, I would have definitely not made this move. I thought about that recently. I'm like, man, had I not taken Pete's um, advice on getting with that Las Vegas show that came to Mississippi at the time when I think I was about 18 or 19. No, I was about 19, 20 going on. And without Pete recommending that, I would have never, I know I would have never, I don't think I would have ever had another opportunity or thought about even going to Las Vegas. But being I went to that show and I played guitar and I took Pete up on that, he's like, go and do the show because he had the connections for the show called Legends in Concert. They called him and it went something like that. And he didn't want to deal with putting it all together for him, but he recommended me and that's when I met a man named Jim Belk and Megan Belk, who was down there. I guess they had got in touch with Jim Belk, probably got in touch with Pete Leone. It was something like that, and or Megan, and and Megan and Jim Belk were they worked with Legends in Concert at the time. Um, Megan, she wears so many hats. So she might have been the one that was talking to Pete at the time. And Jim was the musical director for the show. He played drums. And so, you know, that's how I got my connection to Las Vegas. And then down there while I was in the show, of course, I met Sherry Gordon, whom we became very close. And she's like, "Why are you staying down here? Why don't you move to Vegas?" Because the show was leaving and the circus was picking up and heading back to Vegas. And I said, "Why not?" I had nothing else going on. So with that, I went to Las Vegas and followed the circus, as I say. And, and then I wound up, when I got to town, it wasn't but a year of networking. And I was constantly going out. And first guy, when I came to town, Sherry was taking me around to get in the pipeline to meet everybody, right? The people that she considered very important, which she was correct. These are the right people to know. And one of her first stops was at the Sand Dollar, a landmark here in Las Vegas off of Spring Mountain and Polaris, right off the strip. And it's a little bitty tiny bar with low ceilings and used to be a very smoky atmosphere, that sort of place, a lot of bikers. And she took me to this place, and there was a band called Eddie Joe and the Crawdads, and it was Eddie Joe Gongri, and he was playing. He's a great guitarist and singer, and plays the blues. And man, I really dug listening to him. And I remember she was taking me there to because she had a longtime friend that was in the band, Bruce Wallace, and he was playing B3 in the band, and that was when I met him. No, that was the first musician I met out here in Las Vegas, and Bruce and I have been friends ever since. It's been, and we've had we we're like a married couple, he and I. Since I moved to town, that's 24 years now, Bruce. um, yeah, and then let's see, and then from there, I kept meeting people, kept going and sitting in with bands, and I'd say, skipping through a lot of that. By the next year, I was auditioning and doing well. I worked for Nikki. I have to add that. Uh, when I met Nikki Logan, it was, yeah, I worked with her, worked for her, and playing guitar and doing backup vocals for her. And and then I somehow I got my band together and did some showcasing. I remember the first thing I put together was a group of guys surrounded around this man named Tex Richardson, who is no longer with us. Um, what a great pianist, a great singer, and he helped formulate that in the very beginning. And I'll tell you, I was so wet behind the ears. But when you're doing something like the way I'm doing, man, and you don't know anything about it, at least for me, I'm like, well, just jump in. People are going to laugh at me no matter what. So, and I was wearing the whole suits, man. At the time, I was wearing things that looked like zoot suits, even, and I had like really long hair. It was skinny, 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 skinnier than I am right now. Just really long, curly, almost afroed out hair at times, and awkward. You know, I didn't know my place, but I just kept pushing forward and figured at some point I would find my spot. And I really do believe that moving to Las Vegas, moving out of Mississippi and Louisiana, was a really good thing in that respect, because it made me appreciate where I was from, and in doing so helped discover who I truly was, or at least see myself for who I am myself, right? Because I didn't know a lot of people in the West out here that are from the swamps where I grew up on the Gulf Coast. And it's a different culture. A lot of people don't realize it that are from there until you move out of there. And then you realize, man, people really don't know about us down in those areas too much. They don't know about us swamp people, us puddle jumpers, clod hoppers. I'm telling you, if you see a hill where I'm from, it is more than likely, it's 90% chance of, at least, that it's man-made, because it's just, man, when I saw mountains, when I came out west and I saw rocks, natural rocks. We don't have rocks in Mississippi and Louisiana. We do, but they're imported. Rare you'll find a rock. And by the way, guys, if you find rocks on the ground out in the woods or something, investigate it. It might be a meteorite if it's not been placed there by man. But anyway, yeah, no, I love the mountains. I love the West. And so I got to working with my own band within the first year out here. And hmm, and I don't know. I know I'm leaving a lot out, but I don't want to get sued, so I got to do that. Um, let's see, and I don't know. I came to town and I was just wet behind the ears, just really paying my dues, man, and sticking my neck out there and trying to do everything wrong, but in the best way that I could do it right, so that I can at least push things to a limit, push myself to the limit, and see where I could take it, as far as, and it became a thing of like, who am I? What is this really? Okay, I'm from Mississippi. These are the thoughts that were going through my head as I was realizing my place a little more. And and I came, yeah, and it was that moment that I really was Like, okay, are you a singer? Never really considered myself a singer. So I I am technically, that's how I make my money. But I sing? Yeah, I guess. But I don't consider it singing. I don't consider it singing. What I do is not. I try my best to make it um, believable for myself when I'm doing a song, and I realized that many years ago. But playing in all these places, the casinos and bars out here in Las Vegas, um, paying my dues back then. That's the way I was doing it. I was in anywhere that would hire me, and I would sit in corners and I would just hone in on like what works and what doesn't work, what catches people's attention. Because I'm not one of those entertainers that try to seek attention. Like it would, but I noticed through the years what works and what doesn't work. And by the time, just skip forward, by the time I made it onto America's Got Talent, I had all of that experience of knowing what works and what doesn't work. And that's what took me through the show. Um, I guess I knew it too well because I won the show, but um, it's only in part that I believe that's one of the reasons out of many. Knowing what song selection, which was completely my choice, and the people at the show understood that when I presented it to them, it was an excluded middle. There had no argument on these things. It was just one of those brainless, mindless things. And but going back, to when I was in my early 20s here in Vegas, I spent the years doing that, playing in bars with my small group of guys that I had. Jamie Townsend wound up becoming left hand bass and pianist in my band. I had Dave Hart, and then eventually, and then Michael Meacham, of course, who was there from the very beginning, man, also. And Mike was the true backbone of that. He held it. He held it together, man. Without Mike, I wouldn't have been able to get through those times. He really did. Um, he made it work, and he was so loyal. You know, um, he believed in me. Hmm. He believed in it. He believed in what sound we were making. And I wasn't certain at the time, but I was still playing around with everything. He stayed there behind me, and then I remember I met a guy named Don McGreevy. Now I'm skipping a little ahead because yeah, I'm trying to get this in chronological order here, the best I can. There was a time where I was just playing in the bars that we introduced a bass player eventually, Daryl Williams, awesome bass player, and he played with me for years. So I had Daryl Williams, I had Bruce Wallace in this band at this time in my early 20s, Mike Meacham, um, Dave Hart. Lenny Lopez joined the group on percussions and vocal. He played congas and bongos, and I call it the junkyard. He would bring all his tinkers, and stuff, and it was really cool, man. The band we had set up, and we'd move through musicians only through those guys, like whoever they wanted to have take their seat for moments they couldn't play, and it was awesome because I got to meet a lot of musicians during that time, and the right ones too. And 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 I remember one time when I got this gig. Well, we got this gig at the New York. There was a bar in there called the Big Apple Lounge, and this is back in the early 2000s. And I played there for, I know, at least three. I want to say it was maybe four or five, but going back, I can't remember. It was a long time I played in that spot, and that's rare because Vegas is always changing. And that's what eventually happened to that room I was playing in. Eventually we were the last band to play in there too, because they closed the room, but we had great times in there. And I remember there was a lot of people that came through those doors on the strip that saw me, that wanted to do something and work with me. You know that old saying, look, we're gonna get discovered. That was me in my 20s. I was trying to get rediscovered because in my teens I already fell from grace, in the country music industry that didn't want me any longer. I had a publishing deal in my teens. I had, a record deal. I even won an award, Star of Tomorrow, at the old Grand Ole Opry. And I thought I was heading up, and no, no. Then I wound up on my butt. Pete Leone helped me out, suggesting a show, and I wound up on my butt back in Mississippi, and I wound up taking off with the show to Las Vegas, and yeah, and got my own thing going out here in Vegas, working with some awesome, great musicians, and yeah, hoping you'd get discovered. And one day, there were people that came through many times and would see me, and then I got to work with Don McGreevy. He wanted to manage me, so he was this very hungry, smart, um, so many qualities I can talk about him that are everything that you want and need in someone that believes in you, that that will really do the right things and push, to get you heard. That was Don, and he really, man, he was that manager, man, that you hear about in movies and stuff. The one that really does work for the. Um, what's the movie? Tropic Thunder. The Matt Damon character, the character that Matt Damon plays in that, he plays a manager. That's Don McGreevy. That's the way he was. You want that TiVo? You'll get it if you see the movie. But it's rare. It's so rare, and I've been through so many managers throughout my life, man, and it's rare that you get one that you hang on to, because the manager is a very much like a married relationship. And so Don was really the one that was there pushing me in those times in my early 20s. And he was, man, we have some stories. I could tell you some stories, but man, I'd get in trouble. Oh, I'd get so many people in trouble. I can't I can't say these stories. I can't tell you these stories. Maybe one day I'll write a book if I'm old enough and everybody else has died, so I won't get sued. But um Don, really, man, we had a lot of adventures, and yeah, and then that led me up to the, and I'll skip a little ahead to the point where, because in the years that I was working in the Big Apple, I remember that's where I met Bill Medley. His daughter McKenna Medley came through the doors, and then I didn't know, but it was through David Garland. Let's go, boy, I keep going back. Which came first, the chicken or the egg here? Sorry, Dave. Okay, so Dave Garland, I got to work with, one of the best pianists. Dave worked with me in my first band, trying to put that together. And he was the only guy that, by the way, I'm just going to say, he was the only guy out here that I could find at the time. It's hard to find guys that know how to play the style of music where I come from. It's very difficult. Um, it's a it's that New Orleans style piano, Dr. John and Professor Longhair and Alan Toussaint style. You can name a few, and it's hard to find that he played that style. Dave Garland did, and so when I found him, I was like, oh. And then he played my band, and one time at the Big Apple. And now Dave also used to work and worked with the Righteous Brothers, and so he knew Bill Medley, and Bill came out one night through McKenna. I know McKenna came in first, and she told her dad also. I guess you got to come out and see Mike, something like that. And he came out and saw me, and we became buds. I didn't know this was going to happen. Here comes, an idol of mine coming through the. Stay calm, like this is really him. He's coming out to see me. Now, I already have experience by this point in my 20s in Las Vegas and through the country music business with celebrities. So I really was uncertain about wanting to meet him. I wasn't certain how he was going to be, but everybody said Bill was a great guy. He had such a great reputation from a personal reputation of, people would say something if he was bad. I never heard anything bad about Bill, nothing but great things. And he came out and saw me, and he brought his family one night to come out and see me. His wife Paula at the time, and McKenna, and they would get regular when Bill would come to town, and just got to know him. And when the job eventually ended at the Big Apple, I remember I was playing at another casino at the same time, doing just an acoustic in the corner of a restaurant at the Green Valley Ranch, right outside of the Strip, a local sort of place, a casino, but a very nice one, very nice one. And I was approached by the general manager of the casino one night after I lost the gig at the Big Apple, and he asked me if I think I approached him. I don't remember how it happened. He came out, saw me, and he agreed to let me put together not only a band, but I wanted to take it a step further and put a horn section in and do something with some more energy that could represent the music where I'm from. And so that's what he agreed to it. And, Mike Meacham and the band and all of us, we had working with us. God, if I'm going to leave out a lot of people, please forgive me. The band got very big all of a sudden there. And I remember back in the days of Big Apple, we had Doug Turley, but Doug Turley moved, and then he eventually, unfortunately, tragically passed away, and I miss him dearly. And then when I was at Ovation, which is what this was at Green Valley Ranch, was the name of the room that the general manager let me put this big band together in, and um, we had Eddie DiMarino on bass guitar at the time with Mike Meacham. Um, I don't know, Dave Hart, John Wiedemeyer. I know Jimmy was with us from time to Lenny Lopez. I'm leaving a lot of people out here, I know. And the horn section, I mean, from list of guys that I used through the years, that was all through people like Joe Escriba, um, who would organize a lot of those things. I'm leaving people out, but my memory is failing me at the moment. And I was playing that, and then they pulled the Ovation out, the room that we were playing in. Just they weren't making money, I guess, whatever the political thing was there, and they pulled the room out and they turned the room into a bingo hall. And I just went back to playing in Hanks with my acoustic or whatever, playing with Bruce Wallace. He would be with me on piano, sometimes Bill Zappia, mainly Bruce on that. And that's when I met, really, that's when I met Bill Zappia, was during those times. Didn't know of that little gemstone, that hidden gemstone. I heard about him through years, but never got to work with him until Bruce was sick one day, which is rare at Hanks, where we were playing. And I just, somebody recommended Bill Zappia, and I got him for that. And it's like, no, that was a no brainer, because Bill played what Dave Garland understood, which was that music where I'm from. Bruce was the only one that understood it outside of that. So it was a match made in heaven. But while I was playing in Hanks, and I fell from grace from the Ovation room, from that big band, I remember Bill Medley came walking in one day, and And he said to me, he said something like, you just like, what are you doing here? Why are you just sitting back here? You're in misery or whatever. You look depressed. Why don't you get away from it all and come out and play guitar for me and do some backup vocals and get away? And I thought that was a great opportunity. What an honor for Bill to ask me that, because I don't consider myself a guitarist, but I know how to act like a guitar player on screen. Um, so I took the job, and I'm leaving a lot out, but I took the job and went on a tour with Bill. He was doing, and it wasn't like a bus tour or anything, but we were flying everywhere. And yeah, by the way, Canada Customs. That's when I learned about them. Love you, Canada. Eh, customs do not reflect on you. Don't let our customs reflect on us. Anyway, so yeah, and I was doing this tour with him, and I remember moving. He was going to wind up in Branson, where he had a home. He had a home in Newport, California, but he also owned one where he was from in Newport, and he had one in Branson. And so when that tour was over with, I was to just move to Branson and stay with him on he would have like a weekly show at a theater, one of Branson's many theaters. And while I was on the road completing that tour, something like this, I was in Florida at the time with Bill, and I remember I was on a gig with Sam, um, from Sam and Dave. Um, and sorry, somebody's. And they called me from Hollywood. I think they called Don McGreevy, and Don had called me right when I was right when the show was over. I remember I was backstage and talking to Don, and he's like, they called, them being America's Got Talent, and said, can you be in Hollywood tomorrow? And this is at night after a gig. I was talking to him. It went something like that. And then I said, well, let me check with the boss. I don't think he has a guitarist. I didn't think it could happen. And I really didn't want it to. In the back of my mind, there was this little area. People who know me know that, oh, that's just lazy, Mike. No, I just know I don't. But I knew with them calling me, there was something up, because I tried out the year prior. I didn't add that. I tried out the year prior. That's the only time I tried out for any show, and they didn't call me back. So I thought, okay. And that's when I went on. That's really when I went on tour with Bill. And so when I was on tour with him, and they asked if I could be in Hollywood the next day, I knew there was something up to this, because them not calling the year before, and now they called. They had a plan, is what that told me. I'm not stupid. So I went, oh, okay, well, that's exciting. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, ooh, okay, maybe you'll get on for one episode. Maybe just be hopeful on that, and that's all I need. And I was set up. Guys. I already had my merchandise. I already had things that I was selling, and stuff that to try to, because I was trying to make ends meet the best I could. But I had all of that, and I know the show couldn't own any of that stuff that I had prior. So if I got on one episode, I'd be able to sell some merchandise for a moment, be seen possibly for a moment, which is what those shows do. They lend to you. And really not expect any more than what I can milk out of it, right? And And so they called and I asked the boss, I asked Bill Medley, and he said, I remember his words were, "Go, kid," and what are you waiting for? And that was when I was on that first episode. I wound up in Hollywood the next morning, flying out into Hollywood from Florida. And I was by myself, and I wound up going into what I thought was going to be a cattle call where they give you the number. They gave me a number. And I didn't think I was going to be in front of the judges, but they did. Right when they called my name, I didn't know what the judges, I didn't know I was in Hollywood, but I didn't know I was on the set, you know. Um, and then they called me in, and a lot of people don't know this. Whenever I walked out, they very much edit these shows if you're not aware. Um, and when I walked out, it was like showtime at the Apollo because everybody was booing before I even attempted to speak, let alone sing. And that was a little intimidating. You know, that's why I never went to the Apollo because I didn't like that part of it. And so I pulled out one of the songs that I knew that worked. And it's like, what is the best of the best that you know? I have many, many years behind me now. Take the best of the best, no matter how many times you've done it. And that's what I did. And I took the song written by Eddie Arnold. I know he had a part in writing the song. Um, it was originally a country song, which is what I grew up on. And I also grew up on Ray Charles. So he did a version of this song that I found very dear. And it was You Don't Know Me. And that was the first episode. And from there, oh boy, like Stevie Nicks says, a landslide. She dedicated that song to me one night while I was opening for her. I went backstage after I opened for her, and she was on stage, and I was having, you know, a cigarette in the back. Don't smoke, kids. But and I could hear her say, she goes, "I want to dedicate this to Michael Grimm," and then she started going into landslide, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, don't cry, Michael. Jeez, don't cry." Stevie Nicks dedicating that to you. I'm having one of the most surreal moments ever as I'm alone in a darkness backstage with nobody around as I hear her saying this. You know, she knew that I was going through a lot also, which is why she dedicated that. But the landslide is true, man. It is. And that's what happened. It was a landslide. It was something I couldn't control. I didn't have enough of experience or maybe mindset, brain, to be able to handle that amount of attention. Guys, let me tell you something. That is overwhelming. That is putting it lightly. If I can try to go through one of the scenarios I'm talking about, the very first episode I was on, this is the power of television. I was in Branson when I saw the first episode because I went out to Branson. I went out to Hollywood from Florida. And when I did that episode, I flew back to Branson where I'd moved for the moment because I was settled in with Bill Medley on working with him and working for him. And that's where I saw the first episode. When I saw the first episode, it crashed. I think it was my Facebook. It crashed some social medias. Uh, CD Baby was calling, going, "What the hell is going on?" And my phone, oh my God, my phone. And it was just going off. It was just constantly ringing, and it was just nonstop. And it's amazing because people, when they don't see you on TV, they must assume you're not doing anything. And there's all of this stuff that goes on that is so exhausting that you have to put your time into and energy towards, and it's a lot of lack of sleep. And then you realize why drugs and alcohol become a factor in the entertainment business, because it's just not natural. The expectations out of a human, out of an animal, it's just not possible. To some, maybe, but I don't understand it with those. That is, I don't. It was too much. The attention was way too much. I never wanted such attention. I knew that I wanted to sustain myself by getting in the business, easing in through time. And guys, I've been through the business from Nashville, LA, and New York. I've been all these labels and people trying to give me deals and not knowing what to do with me because I really didn't know myself. I didn't know who I was. And it's not to say I fully know who I am today, but I do know better. I know damn sure better who I am. But not knowing who I was and others that believed in me, trying to get the deals. I was hoping to get into business. My point is I'm hoping to get in that would just ease in, where it's just a name that you hear in a song, where it's not an overnight success sort of thing. I hate that idea. I always saw that as a curse as a child. Like that was never anything I wanted, to be in tabloids and on the covers of every controversy or things like that. No. That takes a heavy toll on anyone's life. But then I got to taste a little of it. Hopefully, I mean, I'm glad it wasn't a lot of the controversy. Could have been, but it wasn't. Um, it was a lot of attention, and I didn't want it. And but I'm grateful. I am grateful. I'm grateful to everybody out there that wanted me to see this and that wanted me to pursue this. And I'm sorry if I failed those who had expected more out of me. I mean, I was turning at the time. I had all these doors open for me. I mean, that was the opportunity I was always waiting for, and it came, and I closed the door. The door went wide open, and I looked and I looked and I said, I don't want this, man. I knew of it already, and I'm not equipped to deal with that level. I'm lucky I'm alive now for what you see as a little bit of fame that came from that. I have people who like to argue that I was never famous. It's according to I guess it's a relative statement then. Um, I don't, there is a claim to fame there, and it was just that. It was on TV, and it was a moment. It opened doors for me. I pulled them back shut. And I almost died in the process, almost killed myself, man. Not willingly, but I guess willingly, but I didn't want to die. And I just didn't know how to deal with the levels of stress, of commitment that I took on. Um, it was intense, and everybody thinking I have money and stuff now. And then I wanted everything to just get rid of that money as soon as I could, man, so that the people would know it's gone. But that's not the way it works. People go, well, that's what he made. It doesn't show what he spent and what's gone. And it doesn't show what taxes taken, all this other stuff. So people really don't understand. If you go in, you can see exactly, if you know how to look for it and cross reference. And then you see what, it was just like, no, I'm not making all this money everybody thought I was making. And for the most part, pulling out of money out of thin air at times to give to people to make it work, and because they thought I did. And shame on you, Michael. Shame on you. I got a lot of that, and it's like, oh, For every reason, I'm just grabbing for something to keep myself to keep myself from, I guess, going insane or depressed, or maybe I was depressed too often. It was not fun. There wasn't a day of it that was fun. The only day that was fun, the only day that was happy after I won the show, and even winning the show, was like a freaking nightmare in my head. I thought Jackie Ivanko was going to win. And the only the only time past that show that was good for 10 years past that show was marrying my wife. That was it. Sorry for those of you who don't who don't like that. I'm sorry, but that was the only thing good that I did during that whole moment. The only thing that felt good and felt right. The rest of it felt wrong, and I was out of my mind. I'm glad that, Lucy was still with me. I was on opiates so bad. Um, I'm ashamed to even tell you at what levels I was taking it at. And it took it took a lot. It was hell to get off of that. That's heroin. And I was at it on a level of heroin. I wasn't shooting it, but I was damn sure close to it. And that's when I knew I had to draw the line, because I was sick. I was bad off, depressed. I didn't want, I guess, to be in this situation that I had created. I asked for it. No good deed goes unpunished. Always remember that. Karma does not work like that in life, like a lot of people may think. What goes around comes around. That's so stupid, to think of it that you're going to get something in return for some good that you do. I believe in karma, but I don't give to expect in return. That's where people get that wrong. That's my opinion, you know, and I did not want that. I didn't want it, but I did, I guess, in a way. I needed it to sustain myself in some way. It was, I'm still around, I'm still alive. It almost killed me twice. I blame it. It's me. I almost killed myself twice. Um, I don't know. I don't know. I can feel all this anxiety in me right now, and my heart's beating as I'm reliving, just barely skimming on the subjects. That's how much trauma is there from the years. And these days, I just, especially my recent near death experience, my stupid ass, I have, I've committed to no longer any drugging or alcohol. I don't have a drop, and I haven't had since I got out of rehab last year. Last July 13th, I got out of rehabilitation, guys. From almost killing myself, unwillingly, unknowingly. I didn't know. I was so gone. A lot of bad days in a row, man. Just blurry to me, and all the months that led up to it. Ugh, it's so fresh. It's hard to even bring up. Ugh. Get away from that one, Mike. Get away. So you bottle that up and you keep that deep down inside, um, for a little longer. Open it, like my doctor was saying. Open it a little bit and let it fizz. Let a little bit of that fizz out before it comes out all at once. Difficult to you you difficult to talk about the failures, shame, guilt. You. Um, but staying sober is it's not going to be I don't think it's going to be a problem from here on out. I made a commitment to my late friend Joe, of which I am to keep to, just like I made the commitment to my late friend Jim. Come on, man. God, Jesus. It's too fresh. It's too fresh to talk about. Jesus and peace, man. Come on, Mike. It's very difficult and stuff to talk about. A lot of shame. Um, People that I can't um, repair, things, people that are gone. So I commit to myself along with them in memory of them and for everybody that's alive, mainly, that I'm still around and I'm not going anywhere. And it's a different me. I'm having to live with myself and deal with the new me. It's a much clearer mind. But guys, please understand when you speak to me that I have thought a lot of things out, so when I speak, I usually have this thought out, but I want you to help me if you think there's a problem. If you think there's a problem, but the only way that I'm going to stay sober is to speak my truth, which is the truth, what I find in a truth. If there's the truth there, it's my purpose to find it in life. Alcohol and drugs was just clouding me up from speaking my mind at times. So this is just one of the things that I'm having to deal with and other people when they come around me. I'm not good with short talk unless small talk, unless it's something that can be fixed, that can be solved. I like I like those conversations. And I like talking to people about things in their life and fun stuff, things that are mindless and one would consider small talk. Those aren't bad in moments. Um, but I'm concentrating right now more in the world of art. That's my hobby. Of course, guitar playing and singing is also another hobby. Though I don't have as much of experience behind, you know, art. I learn a lot of the techniques is what I do, and I experiment through the years. I try different experimenting with different mediums, um, different ways to apply mediums, and then there's so much involved in the techniques of it all. But you have to learn the techniques. They really do help not to go in and be technical. An artist learns the techniques because the artist is just going to be the artist, I guess. Otherwise, they're going to put what they're going to do down. And then when the artist learns technique, like in music, now I can speak the language. Now I understand how vibrations work, how a little better oscillations in theory. And what's fascinating to me is that in the world of music and the world of vibrations and even the science of it, when you get down to particle physics, in the field of string theory and things, when they talk about vibrating strings and stuff, it's fascinating to me. When we look at something like the Standard Model, which is a particle physics, this is the inner workings of a hydrogen atom, right? A single hydrogen atom. Supposedly, all these 12 fermions are 12. Remember, 12. All of them have different vibrations, oscillations in one way of looking at them, the way they're explained. Because it's very difficult to try to understand this stuff. So go with it. But 12 is the number, and you have up and down quarks and you know, quarks and leptons, six quarks, six leptons, altogether 12 fermions. I guess that's the way they're classified. And their bosons, there's about five bosons in it that go with it. But 12 is your number. And what fascinates me is that in music, in Western music, we cut the vibrations into 12. So we on our where they have the standard model, which is a circular they call it supersymmetry in the world of quantum physics. Is it If you look at the standard model, you'll find a symmetrical version of it, and the 12 pies within that of vibration. And I've always found that fascinating because the music wheel has 12. If gone chromatically would, you could do it one way, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but 12, we do it in circle of fifths in music, we call it, but still nonetheless, you're dealing with 12 pies on a circular wheel of vibrations. Now, I compare that a little to the 12 of that. I can't really, when it comes down to it, I just find it interesting that there's 12 fermions, that they say that in one field of theory that these fermions are oscillating, they're vibrating like a string, you know. So, and there's 12 of them. So here we have I just compare it with the similarities and the parallels or coincidence with the circle of fifths in music. And then now I know when I take the circle of fifths in music, then, and I compare it with the color wheel. Now, if I take the fifths out of it and I just go, don't do it in fifths, do it chromatically like the color wheel is done. Yeah. Now things start getting interesting because you have 12 laid out colors, and others people will say, well, mathematically you can fractionize that down even so, but it's just interesting to me. 12 colors on the color wheel, that is vibrations. Even light is oscillation and vibrations we're seeing. They really do. If you look at the if you play with the vibrations on the musical wheel, in comparison to the color wheel, you have what's called complementary colors and split complementary colors on a color wheel that go with your main color you're going with, right? Every color has, the other colors, composite colors that will, they're sort of opposites and they complement in a way. They complement actually, and in the musical wheel, it does a similar thing. Where when you're studying it in music. So, that stuff's fun. I don't know where I was going in art. And so I mess with these days, I just get into that world. And that's, my goodness, I've been on here for a while yapping. Um, I would like to get around to some of these things, what people are saying. There's not a lot on here, but thank you guys. I appreciate everybody tuning in, listening to me, and I'm not depressed. I'm in a good state in my life. I'm neutral, and I believe happiness is overrated. Okay, take it when it comes. But um, you know, I've been messing with color, and I finally mixed some lapis lazuli. I know you can't see it from here. It's a beautiful blue color, beautiful blue, and that's real lapis, real from the rock, from the lapis lazuli rock. And I mixed my Prussian blue, got a nice mix out of that. And between those blues, yeah, I could see where lapis, man, it's its own thing. It stays a consistent hue unless you lighten it with a white, um, but it's pretty consistent. It doesn't get darker or anything as you layer it. However, the Prussian blue is so thick and dark and concentrated in its blue that when it's layered. It looks black, and I love that about it because you can thin it out and you can get some really neat effects out of it. And so I made some, and I did a piece, and I want you to see if you know. Now this is sporting off. Um, I'm just testing. What I'm about to show you might frighten some of you. Okay, but know that I'm okay. I'm okay. I study the Bible characters a lot. You know, I love archaeology and Egypt and all of this stuff, and I love the biblical stories. So in my testing of these colors and just playing around and testing around with ideas, I did this piece yesterday um, with the Prussian blue, and then I used also scarlet. Now this is with real Prussian blue and with real scarlet. That is the uh, cochineal bug has a part in that red that goes into scarlet, and that's where this came from. But anyway, so see if you can guess what biblical character we have right here. See if anybody can guess that. Hint: it was the first murder. The very first murder. Shank, 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 shank. That is Hebrew on his forehead. That means unnatural. He did an unnatural deed. The very first unnatural deed done by man. Oh, well, see, somebody said Job, and I can get that. I'm going to do one on Job. He's one of my next. I'm going to do a Grimm biblical series of all these grim moments of the Old Testament. You know, um, there's a lot of really, really grim stories in the Old Testament. Job is one of them. Job, I read when I was in rehab. I took the time and I wrote a book of Job, and it's not like I was doing that great of suffering, but I wanted to know what suffering was about as far as the Bible talks about in one way. And so what better book than Job, right? And no, I'm going to do a piece on Job, but this one is on Cain. Of course, he did the unnatural deed of killing his brother Abel. I think it was a fight over some jealousy of a fur coat in the story or something like that. And they said the mark, the mark, he was marked on his forehead by God. Um, and a lot of people believe that it was an actual mark to the forehead. I think it's just like a wanted sign, is what it is. It's what the story that he's a mark out for him. Well, yeah, that's, you murder somebody, even today, they'll carry on with that word. There's a mark out for you. Might as well put a mark on your forehead, you know. But no, that's Cain. And I thought, make him look, let's see him again here. Make him look as and he's anguished. He's like, that's just anguish. Ah, ah, and his hands look, it's just, oh yeah, you got the blood on your hands, you nasty, nasty man, you nasty, you did a horrible, nasty deed, the worst deed possible. Whew, yeah, all about a little jealousy. Jealousy, man, that shit is real. Have I ever been jealous? Ask yourself that too. Check yourself on that. And if you think jealousy is a good thing, you might want to check yourself again on that, because it is not. And I agree with the Bible on that. Pride too. Let's get rid of this whole pride thing. But this is a different subject. I hate this whole pride movement. I don't like prides. I like people being happy with themselves. But come on, pride. Reason why I say that, it takes you over the line with your arrogance when we get too prideful. Too prideful. Whew. Anyway, so let's see. See, somebody said, such anguish, Cain. Question mark. Yes, you got that right. A marked man. A marked man. Cain. Got to do a lot more study on Cain. That's an interesting story. Um, and I have some, if you guys have other ideas, I had a recommendation from a good friend of mine, Steve Kilgore, he said, you should, because I'm wanting to capture emotion the best I can using. So, and by the way, that's not watercolor that I showed you. I was glazing with oil, by the way. But that sort of effect right now, I'm just trying, and I'm doing palette knives, so I'm not doing brushes or anything. I'm just drawing the subject, but I want to draw the subject with some emotion. I want to get some real emotion. And his idea on one of the subjects was, Moses and the burning bush, which we always, that's pretty done subject, but his that he came up with was unique. And it would be the terrified look on his face. And that's a challenge for me. Because now and I told him to send me a picture of himself and what he thinks I would show you, but I'm not going to do it. But he sent me, and I think I'm going to use that as my study of the expression. But it is something terrifying to, I guess, come across a bush that's, on fire, but yet not. That's the way it's described. Engulfed and but not consumed by flames. I don't think that would be more mesmerizing as it would be freaking terrifying, like Steve Kilgore said. I agree with him. I think that's, I think that's the moment when Yahweh was to tell Moses of what his mission was to be, to get his people out of Egypt, right? So this is a turning point, a moment in Moses's life, where he's making a turn towards something. I think at this moment he's probably really devoting himself to Yahweh at this point, and he's probably already a Yahwehist, but I don't know. I don't know this. I study so much on that, on the archaeological side of it. There's some really interesting things that were going on during the time of the Exodus that I would love to bring to the table one day. Things that I find interesting, but being that I am not an academic, I think I could say some things because academics will frown upon what I have to say. But who am I? But I've studied it for many years, and I would love for anybody to, once I start bringing this stuff out, I'll bring it out bit by bit, challenge me on it. I love the challenge. I want to be critical on history. We have to be critical with history. We have to ask the questions and cannot take things so seriously at a face value. It's history. And there's a lot of lying that goes on, but it's not lying like you think. All people are purposely just being the devil. That's not the type of lying that it is. It's just not truths, that even in archaeology we find it everywhere. And but archaeology tends to, I go more towards that direction because I know all of the other stuff. I grew up on the other stuff. I'm well knowledgeable on that. Anyway, there you go, guys. I hope I didn't depress you too much. I'm going to get off here now and get myself ready for tonight. So have a good day. Love you all. Peace.